The galaxy had already decided that Salith did not matter anymore. Once her name had been spoken with caution and respect across a dozen star systems. She had been born into a ruling bloodline of the Lithari, a graceful and ancient species known for their diplomacy and culture. Their empire had never been large, but it had been stable, woven together by treaties and trust rather than fear. Salith had been trained from childhood to listen more than she spoke, to weigh every decision, and to carry the burden of leadership without showing weakness. That galaxy was gone. The Lithari worlds fell one by one when a neighboring coalition decided their space lanes were more valuable than old agreements. The galaxy watched, calculated profit and risk, and chose silence. No fleets came to help. No councils intervened. Salith's people were scattered, enslaved, or forced into exile. Their culture became a footnote in archived data, their banners removed from public halls. Salith survived only because she ran. Now she drifted through the dark in a damaged courier ship that once belonged to her royal guard. The vessel was old, scarred, and barely holding together. Power flickered through its systems, and warning lights glowed weakly along the walls. The ship had no escort, no flag, and no official identity. To the galaxy, it was just another piece of debris moving between stars. Salith sat strapped into the pilot's chair, her posture rigid from exhaustion rather than pride. Her ceremonial robes had long been replaced by simple clothing meant for travel and survival. Her once polished crest was dulled and cracked, and her skin bore faint scars from days spent hiding and running. In her arms, wrapped carefully in a thermal cloth, slept her child. The child was the reason she kept going. He was small, even for a Lithari infant, his breathing soft and steady. One hand was curled tightly around her finger, as if afraid she might disappear. Salith felt a familiar ache in her chest as she watched him. The galaxy saw children like him as liabilities, distractions, weaknesses that could be exploited. To Salith, he was hope given form. The ship shuddered suddenly, pulling her attention back to the controls. "Structural integrity at 40%, the ship's dull voice reported. "Power reserves critical." She checked the star map again. Most nearby systems belonged to factions that would either arrest her, sell her, or turn her over to those who wanted the last Lithari royal blood erased. There was, however, one region marked with strange, outdated symbols: human space. Humans were new by galactic standards, loud, unpredictable, and stubborn. They had fought wars far larger empires expected them to lose, and had refused to disappear when they were told they should. Many older species dismissed them as dangerous children playing with starships and ideals they did not fully understand. Salith had never met a human. She only knew the stories. Some said humans were violent and reckless. Others said they were strangely loyal once trust was earned. Most of the galaxy avoided them simply because humans did not fit neatly into existing power structures. Her ship's sensors chimed weakly. "Uncharted object detected, gravity well forming." A frontier world lightly populated, far from major trade routes. Exactly the kind of place the galaxy ignored. She hesitated. Sending a distress signal was dangerous. It announced her location to anyone listening, but without repairs, her ship would not survive another hour. She looked down at her child again and made her decision. She activated the beacon. The signal was simple and old-fashioned, stripped of royal codes and political identifiers. Just a request for assistance from a civilian vessel with a child on board. Minutes passed in silence. Salith's heart pounded as she scanned for incoming ships, half expecting hostile signatures or automated enforcement drones. Instead, a single response appeared on her console: human vessel inbound. Medical and engineering support equipped. No threats, no demands, just a statement. The human ship emerged from faster-than-light travel with controlled precision. It was larger than her courier but not built like a warship. Its hull bore signs of use and repair, not decoration. It moved with calm confidence, not predatory interest. A communication request appeared. Salith straightened instinctively, then stopped herself. She was no longer an empress demanding respect. She was a refugee asking for mercy. She accepted the call. The screen flickered, then displayed a human male wearing a simple uniform. His hair was dark, his face lined with fatigue rather than arrogance. His eyes were sharp but not cruel. He looked at her ship's readings before looking directly at her. "This is Commander Elias Ward of the human exploration vessel Resolute," he said. His voice was steady and clear. "Your signal indicates structural failure and a civilian on board. Are you injured? We're matching velocity now. Our engineers will stabilize your ship, then we'll bring you aboard if you agree." As human drones connected to her ship and began emergency repairs, Salith felt the tension in her body slowly begin to ease. The engines stopped screaming in protest. The power stabilized just enough to keep life support steady. When the docking sequence completed, Elias personally met her at the airlock. He stood at a respectful distance as she stepped onto the human ship, her child still cradled against her chest. Medical staff moved quickly but gently. They scanned the child first, their movements careful and precise. One of them smiled softly when the readings came back stable. "He's healthy," the medic said. "A bit underweight, but that can be fixed." Elias crouched slightly to be at eye level with her. "You don't have to tell us who you are right now," he said. "But I need to know one thing. Are you in danger if we hand you over to Galactic authorities?" "Then you're under human protection until further notice," he said. "That includes your kid." "Why?" she asked quietly. Elias stood. "Because the galaxy doesn't get to decide who deserves help." The human ship moved away from the frontier world and slipped quietly into open space. Inside, life continued with calm purpose, but for Salith, everything felt unreal. She had spent months running, hiding, expecting betrayal at every stop. Now she sat inside a clean, well-lit cabin while human medics adjusted the temperature to suit her species and brought nutrient-rich food without asking for payment or favors. Her child slept in a small cradle beside her bed. The humans had built it quickly, modifying their own infant equipment to fit Lithari biology. Soft light surrounded him, and gentle monitoring tones filled the air. Salith watched his chest rise and fall, still half expecting someone to come and take him away. No one did. Commander Elias Ward stood outside the cabin, reading reports on a handheld display. He had ordered limited access to Salith's presence, not to isolate her, but to give her space. Word had already spread through the ship that an alien refugee and her child were aboard. The crew reacted with curiosity, concern, and quiet protectiveness. None questioned the decision to help. That, more than anything, unsettled Salith. She was used to fear. A soft tone sounded at her door. She looked up. "Enter." "We did our best with what data we have. Until you decide what to do with me." Salith looked away quickly, focusing on her child so the human would not see the moisture gathering in her eyes. Over the following days, the ship continued its patrol through the edge of human-controlled space. Salith slowly learned the rhythms of the crew. Humans moved quickly but spoke plainly. Rank mattered, but not enough to silence disagreement. Elias listened to engineers and medics with the same seriousness he gave his officers. She noticed how humans treated their own young. Children were rare aboard the ship, but recorded messages and personal items told stories of families left behind. Humans fought, explored, and worked not for abstract glory, but for people they loved. One day, as Salith walked slowly through a corridor with her child secured against her chest, a young human engineer stopped suddenly and froze. "Oh, sorry," the engineer said quickly, stepping back. "Didn't mean to stare." She did not know how to respond, so she simply nodded. The engineer waved nervously and hurried off. That small moment stayed with her. Not all reactions were kind. A few days later, Elias was summoned to a secure communication channel. A representative from a neighboring alien faction appeared on the screen, their form tall and sharp-edged. "Commander Ward," the representative said coldly. "Our sensors detected a Lithari vessel entering your space. That individual is wanted for questioning. Killing her invites something worse. Your people will suffer consequences for helping me. No exceptions based on politics." It looked more like a gathering place, filled with ships of different sizes and purposes. Salith was escorted to a secure but comfortable residence area. Humans came and went, offering supplies, medical checkups, and educational materials translated into her language. They did not interrogate her. They did not demand secrets. Eventually, Elias requested a formal meeting. "This station has limited authority," he explained. "Your presence is already being discussed at higher levels." She spoke of the fall of her people, the broken treaties, the silence of the galaxy. She spoke of running through ruined systems, of hiding her pregnancy, of watching former allies pretend not to recognize her. She did not cry. Her voice remained steady, but the weight of truth filled the room. When she finished, the humans were silent. One of the officials exhaled slowly. "They erased an entire culture. That's where they're wrong. Trade delays, diplomatic warnings, thinly veiled threats. Humans answered none of them publicly. Instead, fleets repositioned, supply chains adjusted, old defense agreements quietly activated. Salith watched all of this with growing unease. "You are preparing for conflict," she said to Elias one evening as they stood near a viewport. "We prepare so we don't have to fight," Elias replied. "And if they force you?" All agreed on one thing: the human commander had made a dangerous choice. They still believed it was only about protecting a single refugee. They did not yet understand that humanity had already accepted something far greater, a future tied to hers. The galaxy did not stay quiet for long. What began as polite concern turned into sharp attention. Signals crossed space faster than ships ever could, carrying rumors, warnings, and fear. A forgotten queen had been found, and worse, she had been taken in by humans. Older powers watched closely, unsure whether to laugh at human foolishness or prepare for something dangerous. On the human station, Salith felt the change before anyone explained it to her. Security became tighter. Patrol ships rotated more often. Conversations lowered in volume when she entered a room. No one treated her badly, but she could sense the weight of her presence pressing on every decision. Her child, however, remained unaware of it all. He laughed more now, his soft sounds echoing through the quiet living space the humans had prepared. He reached for light panels, grabbed at Elias' fingers when the commander visited, and slept without fear. Watching him grow strong under human care filled Salith with gratitude and guilt in equal measure. One evening, Elias arrived earlier than usual. His uniform was neat, but his expression was serious. "We need to talk," he said. Salith nodded and secured her child in his cradle. "The galaxy has decided to stop pretending I don't exist." "Yes. They want to see if humans follow the same rules as everyone else. If we hand you over, we tell them our values are flexible." The galaxy wanted to see how humans would behave under pressure. The meeting chamber was vast and cold, filled with representatives from many species. Some Salith recognized as former allies. Others had signed the orders that destroyed her worlds. Their eyes lingered on her, some with curiosity, others with thinly veiled satisfaction. Elias stood beside her, not behind. The lead representative spoke first. "The Lithari individual known as Salith is a destabilizing figure. Her continued existence encourages unrest among displaced populations. We understand balance very well, we just define it differently." "I won't." Inside was a simple band, crafted from layered human alloys and inlaid with a faint Lithari pattern. It was not extravagant, but it was carefully made. "What is this?" Salith asked. "A symbol," Elias replied. "Humans use them to bind responsibility. Humans don't see that as weakness." This was more than safety, this was defiance. This was a declaration the galaxy could not ignore. She looked at her child, sleeping peacefully. Then she looked at Elias. "I accept," she said. The announcement was made quietly, but its impact was anything but. Human channels confirmed it in clear, simple language. Salith was recognized not as a displaced noble, but as a queen. Not over territory, but over a people that still lived. Elia's ward stood beside her as consort and protector, and the child was legally adopted under human law. The galaxy exploded in reaction. Some laughed, calling it a reckless emotional act. Others were furious. Several powers immediately issued threats, sanctions, and warnings. Humans responded with silence. Then fleets began to move. Not toward invasion, but toward defense. Borders tightened, trade routes shifted, allies were contacted. Salith watched the data streams in disbelief. "You prepared for this," she said to Elias. "We prepare for everything," he replied, "especially when someone threatens our family." Debates erupted across human networks. Some questioned the risk, others questioned the wisdom. But the majority stood firm. They saw a mother protecting her child. They saw people erased for convenience. And they saw a line that should not be crossed. One attempt was made, a covert strike disguised as an accident, a malfunctioning shuttle near the station. Human sensors detected it instantly. The response was precise and restrained. The shuttle was intercepted. Evidence was collected. The responsible faction was named publicly. No weapons were fired. The message was clear. Salith realized then that humanity's strength was not anger but control. They did not rage. They did not threaten without reason. They simply acted, and they did not back down. As pressure mounted, something unexpected happened. Other displaced species began reaching out. Quiet messages, requests for asylum, stories of broken promises and erased histories. Human stations filled with refugees the galaxy had forgotten. Salith stood beside Elias as he reviewed the reports. "They're coming because of me," she said. "They're coming because they believe we'll protect them," Elias corrected. She understood then. The galaxy had not just underestimated humanity's strength, it had misunderstood their purpose. As stars shifted outside the viewport, Salith felt fear still, but it was no longer alone. It stood beside resolve, hope, and something new. The galaxy had tried to erase her. Instead, it had given her a future bound to a species that refused to look away. Salith's life had changed faster than she could process. One week she was running from hunters, hiding in the shadows of ruined spaceways, and now she stood aboard a human flagship, her child safe and her presence recognized by a species that refused to ignore her. Yet the calm was deceptive. Beyond the station, the galaxy watched, and some of its older powers were growing impatient. The humans, however, did not panic. Elia's ward moved through the ship with quiet authority. His crew, once cautious around the alien queen and her child, had grown accustomed to their presence. Engineers recalibrated shield arrays near the living quarters, medical staff checked Salith's child multiple times a day, and security officers monitored the outer perimeters of the station. Everything was precautionary, measured, and precise. Salith followed him one morning as he walked toward the bridge. She wanted to understand how humans handled the growing threat rather than remain in passive observation. "Why do you act like this?" she asked. "Why not strike first, crush those who threaten you? If we respond with uncontrolled violence, we prove them right, that humans are dangerous, reactive, and unpredictable. We respond with purpose, and the galaxy begins to see that there is a difference." The bridge was a hub of activity. Holographic displays floated above consoles, showing nearby star systems, trade routes, and fleet movements. Humans and a few other species worked side by side, exchanging technical terms with surprising ease. When Salith entered, crew members paused, recognized her presence, and then continued without hesitation, as if her presence was expected and normal. "You have made the galaxy nervous," she said, half a question, half a statement. Elias did not need to respond verbally. He turned the main display toward her. A map lit up, highlighting the outer reaches of human space. Several borders now had fleet positions shifted, ready to react at a moment's notice. Even minor systems had received resupply and defensive upgrades. "They assumed we would ignore you," he said. "They did not anticipate that humans do not abandon what they decide matters." One of the junior officers called out, "Unknown vessel approaching, cloaked signature detected. It's moving fast, not responding to hails." She had never seen such confidence, and it unsettled her. The unknown ship appeared on the main screen, a sleek, dark vessel unlike any design she recognized. Symbols flickered along its hull, identifying it as part of a coalition that had overseen the fall of her people. "They've sent assassins," she said quietly. Elias did not reply. He gestured to the crew, who executed commands with precise timing. Communication signals were sent, scanning beams swept for weapons, and escape vectors were calculated, all in seconds. The cloaked ship paused, then emitted a single pulse. A warning shot, invisible to the eye but detected by sensors. The human response was not retaliation. Instead, defensive shields strengthened, electronic countermeasures activated, and a human message was transmitted. "This vessel is under human protection," Elias' voice said clearly over open channels. "Any aggression will be met with full consequence. Withdraw immediately." Then, without firing again, it turned and sped away. Salith exhaled slowly, a mixture of relief and astonishment flooding through her. You didn't attack, you didn't even scare them first." Salith picked him up, holding him close. Watching the humans in action made her realize the depth of their planning, their discipline, and their morality. Over the following days, more subtle pressures arrived. Coalition fleets repositioned, ambush routes were rerouted, and neutral systems began to quietly side with humans, fearing the consequences of choosing the wrong ally. Salith's presence had become more than symbolic, it had catalyzed action. Her survival was now tied to human authority, and the galaxy was beginning to recognize that her protection could not be ignored. Elias introduced her to the human legal and cultural framework, explaining adoption processes, political rights, and diplomatic protections. "You are no longer merely a refugee," he told her. "You are recognized under human law. Your child is officially part of this species' protection network. That matters more than you realize." Here, principle and law work together to provide safety, not just a temporary solution. As word of the situation spread, other displaced species began to reach out. Quiet signals, discreet requests, and hidden communications arrived daily. They asked for asylum, protection, and advice. They had been ignored by the galaxy for decades, and humans offered a rare promise that their safety mattered. One evening, Salith watched the stars with Elias. Her child slept nearby. "The galaxy believes it can control everyone through fear," she said softly. "Yet you show restraint and strategy. I do not understand humans fully, but I feel it. Humans fight when necessary, but our true strength is in preparation and principle. You and your child brought this out in us, but you also inspire others." The galaxy had thought her irrelevant. It had assumed she would vanish quietly, taking her child with her into oblivion. Instead, she was at the center of a silent revolution, one not driven by warships alone, but by steadfast determination and moral authority. Soon after, reports arrived of small human fleets stationed near vulnerable systems once considered safe for raids. Trade routes shifted, diplomatic channels opened, and the galaxy slowly realized that humans were not just reacting, they were shaping space with purpose. Salith's child began to walk under human supervision. Crew members encouraged his steps, laughed at his mischief, and recorded his growth. She watched him thrive in ways she never imagined possible. He would grow without fear, without the sense that the galaxy could simply discard him. The coalition that had attempted to eliminate her realized that simple assassination and intimidation were no longer viable. Humans communicated clearly, defended relentlessly, and acted strategically. Any further attempt to remove Salith would risk broader consequences the galaxy could not afford. It became clear, Salith was no longer just a refugee. She had become a symbol of what humanity could do, how they could protect and empower those who had been ignored. Her survival was now entwined with a species that refused to compromise on principle, and that created a ripple far larger than she could have imagined. Salith spent long hours with Elias, learning, observing, and understanding. She began to teach him about her people, their customs, language, and history. In return, he explained human governance, law, and ethics. Together, they planned quietly, ensuring that her child and her legacy would survive even as the galaxy resisted their presence. One day, a message arrived, not a demand or threat, but a subtle warning from a distant power. It stated plainly, the humans' actions were unacceptable. They must release the Lithari Queen or face consequences. Elias read the message aloud, calm as ever. "They still believe fear will work. They do not understand restraint combined with resolve." And the galaxy would have to reckon with it. Salith realized that her story, her survival, and her child's life were no longer hers alone. They were tied to humanity, and humanity did not falter when it decided someone mattered. She understood then that the greatest weapon humans wielded was not firepower. It was commitment, preparation, and the unshakable belief that no one under their protection would be abandoned. The galaxy had ignored her once. Now it would not ignore humanity, and through humanity it could no longer ignore her. The galaxy had underestimated humans. That was the first lesson Salith learned in full. The coalition that had tried to erase her existence now faced a quiet but unyielding opposition. The humans did not broadcast threats, they did not flaunt their fleets, and they did not demand concessions. Instead, they acted with precision, protecting Salith, her child, and the displaced species that had begun quietly reaching out for help. Every step was measured, every action deliberate, and every message clear. Salith was under their protection, and anyone who challenged that would face consequences. For Salith, watching this unfold was almost surreal. She had spent years fleeing, hiding, and surviving on instinct. Now she observed a different kind of strength, one that combined foresight, discipline, and principle. She had never imagined that survival could feel so controlled, so assured. Her child toddled through the corridors of the human station, laughter echoing off the metallic walls. Crew members stopped to smile or encourage him, and Salith found herself smiling in return. For the first time, she did not fear for his safety, not in the immediate sense. The humans had made sure of that. Elias approached her quietly, his steps careful. "We've received reports from nearby systems. Many displaced species are now requesting asylum. They've seen what we did for you, and they want to know the same protection is available to them. They trust that humans will do what is right, even when the galaxy tells us otherwise." They stood by their word, even when it was inconvenient or dangerous. A soft alert chimed on the bridge. Salith followed Elias to the main display. A fleet from the coalition that had destroyed her people had moved close, likely to intimidate or provoke. The humans did not panic. They calculated, coordinated, and prepared, their actions silent but unmistakable. Shields were reinforced, sensor networks expanded, and communication channels were opened to nearby neutral systems. Elias turned to her. They think aggression will force compliance. They do not understand that humans act with principle first, firepower second. If they strike at a wall that will not yield. It is terrifying, but also beautiful. The older powers who had once ignored or dismissed her were now forced to acknowledge a new reality. Humanity did not follow the same rules, and its commitment to protection was absolute. One evening, she walked with her child to a quiet observation deck. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass, and the hum of the station's systems filled the air. Her child pointed at a distant star, giggling, and she lifted him slightly so he could see better. "They are learning," she whispered, almost to herself. "The galaxy is learning what it cannot ignore. Our actions speak louder than threats ever could." Representatives from multiple species appeared on the viewports, their expressions cautious. "Commander Ward," the lead representative began, voice measured. "Your actions regarding the Lithari refugee Salith have caused concern. We request clarification. Any aggression toward them is an act against humanity itself. This is not a request. It is a declaration. You cannot enforce this across the galaxy." They were part of a system that would not let them be erased. Over the following months, the galaxy began to adapt. Some powers tried subtle pressure, hoping to test human resolve. Trade routes were threatened, political alliances suggested, and small skirmishes hinted at. Every attempt failed. The humans responded with controlled precision, defending without escalating unnecessarily, and making clear that any attack on Salith or her child would carry serious consequences. Other displaced species began to approach, quietly seeking refuge or protection. Word spread slowly, but effectively, that humans would stand by those the galaxy tried to ignore. Salith found herself in meetings with representatives from several minor species, helping them navigate the human systems and learn the protections available to them. She became a symbol, not through force, but through the example of survival, dignity, and alliance. Elias observed her closely during these interactions. "You are no longer just a refugee," he said one day. "You are part of this network, part of the message humanity is sending. You are recognized, and through you, others can be saved." Her child ran ahead to greet a human engineer who had been teaching him simple words in both languages. Salith watched him laugh freely, feeling a sense of hope she had never allowed herself to imagine. He would grow in safety, surrounded by a species that had chosen to value life over convenience. One morning, news arrived that the coalition responsible for her people's fall had attempted to negotiate through a third party, offering minor concessions if humans released Salith. The reply was simple: "No, she is under human protection. The matter is closed." Months later, she stood with Elias and her child on the observation deck. The child reached for the stars, pointing at a distant system. Salith lifted him gently so he could see better, feeling the warmth of life and security in his tiny hands. "You see that?" she asked Elias. "This is what we have built, not walls, not armies, but safety, trust, protection. The galaxy tried to erase you, Salith. Instead, we built something they cannot ignore. A future where life matters, and where those who were dismissed can survive and thrive." They had made her not just a survivor, but a queen whose voice mattered, and a mother whose child would live without fear. As the stars shifted in the distance, she knew the galaxy would never forget her again. It could ignore, dismiss, or threaten, but it could no longer erase. Through humanity, she and her child had become part of something larger, enduring, and undeniable. The galaxy had once ignored her. Now the galaxy had no choice but to acknowledge her, and with that acknowledgement came more than survival. It brought hope for her child, and for every species that the galaxy had thought it could forget. The future stretched wide, filled with stars, possibility, and the quiet but unstoppable power of humanity. Salith understood then that the galaxy's greatest mistake had been underestimating a species that refused to turn away, and that in their choice to stand with her, humans had rewritten what it meant to matter. For the first time in her life, she felt truly safe. Not because she was hidden, not because she was powerful, but because someone had chosen to protect her, and that choice had changed everything. The galaxy could try to challenge them, could try to reclaim what it thought was lost, but humans did not act like other species. They acted with principle, strength, and unwavering resolve. And as long as that choice remained, Salith and her child would not just survive, they would thrive. Her story was no longer one of despair. It was one of hope, courage, and the undeniable proof that when someone stands beside you, even the galaxy must bend to acknowledge it. Salith watched her child reach for the stars again, laughing freely, and knew that the galaxy would never again make the mistake of ignoring what mattered most. The galaxy had ignored her once, but now, through humanity, she had become a queen, a mother, and a symbol that could not be erased. And this time she would endure.